Of all the stupid things I've done in my life, not investing is up there at the top of the list. I mean, it's probably one of the biggest mistakes in my entire life, actually. And it's no fault of our own, because the way society is set up, I literally think it's like this on purpose. I mean, I went to school, I went to high school, I had trade school and stuff like that in school, and not once did anybody talk to me about investing. Not once did anybody talk to me about how to manage money, how to save money. And then I got out of high school and I went to college. I ended up going to a tech school. And, you know, again, that's kind of niche because it's a tech school and not technically a college, but no financial education whatsoever in that school. I walked out of there with an associate's degree. Several years later, I went back to college. I got a bachelor's degree from a university, and not a single class talked about anything financial. And maybe there was electives or something like that I wasn't aware of, but who knows? Because nobody ever told me, like, hey, you need to take financial education, you need to be smart about money. Nobody ever told me this stuff. The reason I learned all the stuff I learned about money is just because I'm a tightwad. I came from nothing. I came from a place of not having money. I was never handed anything throughout my entire life. Everything I ever wanted, I had to bust my butt and I had to work for. So when I got money, I held on to it. And those are the values I carried with me throughout my entire life. And that's what's got me to where I'm at today. So I never had somebody looking over my shoulder telling me, hey, you need to invest. My parents never told me that. You know, they were blue collar workers, probably like most people's parents. And they basically just relied on the system and assumed that they were going to work their entire lives until they were old enough to get on Social Security and retire out, you know, with their actual retirement. I don't know that my parents invested at all. And as a matter of fact, I don't think they did. I think like most people, they just relied on the system. But you know, the younger generation, people like us and people younger than us, I'm 40 years old, Social Security may not even be there for us. So you have to invest and you have to be financially literate if you want to be able to actually retire from the workforce. And for most people, you're gonna want to retire from the workforce because you don't want to work your entire life. A lot of us think we're working so that we can buy all this stuff and we can acquire all these things that are going to make us happy. But the real reason we're working is so that we can get out. We're working to retire. That's the whole point. So we're effectively just working to buy back our time. That's all we're really doing. And knowing what I know now about money, I should have invested from day one because I've been single my entire life. I've never had somebody else to support. And my living expenses and stuff like that have always been very, very minor. So the amount of money I could have put into a 401k or into investments and stocks and stuff like that, or even real estate, is insane. Like I could have invested all my money, my entire life savings, into investment accounts, and I would be so much better off than I am today. And an argument could be said that, you know, I'm here, I'm retired from the workforce, I retired at 39, everything I own's paid for, I own 2 homes, this is my vacation house here, I rent this out, Airbnb on the side, which I'm going to get into this in a second because this is an investment property I bought after I retired, after I don't have an income anymore. I bought this thing. So don't get me wrong, I put myself in a very good position having not invested. But I just think about how much further along I probably could have been. And the fact that I probably could have retired actually way earlier than I did if I would have invested, because I would have had a lot more money. And it wasn't until just the last few years I started looking at investing, and I started throwing money into like Bitcoin and Ethereum and stuff like that. Different types of cryptocurrency. And I'm telling you right now, I put money into crypto the year before it went on that massive bull run, like before 2020. I didn't put a lot of money in there because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I just heard, hey, you need to put money in Bitcoin and Ethereum and stuff like that. So I did. And I just kind of threw some money in there and I didn't really think about it. And then the bull run happened and I went back in there and I looked at the money I gained and the spike that it went up to. And then it did come back down some, but I was like, if I would have put 3/4 of my life savings in that account when that bull run happened, I would have had generational wealth. Like I would never have to worry about money. If I had a family, they would never have to worry about money. Their family would probably never have to worry about money. That's how much money I would have made during that bull run. And another big one was the stock market. which I never invested into. I mean, I had 401ks and stuff throughout my entire career, which were very good. They were matched asset plans where the company would match you up to a certain percentage. They had, contributions that they would put in based off how much money you put in. And it would have been a really smart move to take advantage of that, but I never did. So, the last few years I started playing with the stock market, and I invested into certain stocks like Nvidia, and I can't remember. There's a few different ones, but those are also some of the ones that shot way up. And again, I didn't put a lot of money in there, but I could have made a ton more money. And another big one is real estate. And that's what I invested into now. Now that I've retired, I'm dipping my toes into real estate. And I'm realizing how much money is in real estate. I retired in January of 2024. I bought this in July. All right. And I paid cash for it because now that I'm debt free, I've made a pact with myself that I'm not willing to go into debt again for any reason. If I can't pay cash for it, I don't need it. And I pretty much have everything in life that I want anyway. So I really don't need to spend that kind of money on something where I would need to pull out a loan. So I bought this lake house, and I figured this would be a good way to dip my toes into the real estate market, because lake homes specifically, they appreciate exponentially higher than the rest of the market. And that has been pretty true for the area I invested in, because the homes around here have quadrupled, and in some cases even beyond that. I mean, they're very, very expensive compared to what they were just 10 years ago. So I know the value of this home is only going to go up. And I will say 100%, this is probably one of the best decisions that I've ever made financially, investing in this property. Like I mentioned, I bought it in July of 2024, and I started renting it out short-term rental Airbnb in October. I had a few months in between because it did need a few things. And since I am kind of a handyman myself, I did all the work myself. So I saved a ton of money fixing this place up, getting it to where it needed to be. But even though it's been the off season, this place stays booked. But because I don't have a mortgage on this home, the money it makes, it pays for itself. And not only does it pay for itself, but because I don't have a mortgage on my primary home, it pays for that too. So literally, this investment property pays for my living expenses. And I'm not necessarily profitable just off of renting this out, because I do have other expenses. I still go out and do things. I still experience the world, and I buy food and all these other things. But the fact that I have 100% equity in this home, and if I turn around and sell it, I'm going to make my money back and then some, plus the fact that it's basically paying for itself. It's a free piece of property. And owning a free piece of property, you cannot go wrong. So this has absolutely been literally the best investment I probably ever made with my money. So for the younger guys out there, I mean, obviously I'm not in the place to give investment advice, but I would say if you're thinking about investing, I would get with somebody that's smart on that, and I would talk to them very seriously about it and see what they think you should invest in. What's the smart move for your actual situation? Because if I had somebody like that I could have sat down with, that could have walked me through all this stuff, I would have invested a long time ago when I first started working, and I would have dumped every cent that I was able to into something that was going to allow my money to work for me. Because fact of the matter is, if you don't take initiative and you don't look into this stuff yourself and you don't get smart on this, nobody's going to teach it to you. The system is 100% geared to not teach you these things. Like, they do not want you to get ahead. They want to keep you in the system as long as they possibly can until the age of retirement, which is 65 years old. The average life expectancy in America is 74. So you get out and you have 9 years left. You have 9 years to do all the things that you've been putting off your entire freaking life after you retire. And that is a very sad, very disheartening reality, because you just worked 45 to 50 years of your life, in some cases a lot more than that, and you traded those years for 9 years, if you're lucky, if you actually make it that far. And with those 9 remaining years, what do you do with them? Because at that point, you're probably too old, you're probably too tired and depleted to do those things that you've been putting off your entire life. So then you're just basically stuck sitting around waiting until it's your turn to go. And that's no way to live. And that is 100% the thing that I wanted to avoid. And that's why I put myself in this position, because I didn't want to be that guy. And if there's one key thing to take away from all this, it should just show you what is actually possible. Because I was able to accomplish all this without ever having invested. And not only did I not invest, but I accomplished all this on a very moderate, very average, very non-impressive salary. I never made a lot of money. Over 85% of my career, I made $70,000 or less. And actually, that's being very generous, because for most of my career, I made like $60,000. When I first started my career, I was making $20 an hour. And it wasn't until like 3 or 4 years before I got out that I ever got above $70,000 a year. And when I got out, I still didn't have a 6-figure salary. So I'm not rich by any stretch of the imagination. And I think that's very important, because in our modern society, everybody makes you think that you have to have like millions of dollars to get ahead. And if you want to own your own home and you want to be debt free, then you have to be a millionaire. But that is simply not the case, and I'm living proof of that. So knowing that I've made it this far without ever having invested should give you a lot of hope and show you what's actually possible. Because if you're like I was and you're making a modest salary, if you were to invest as much of that money as you possibly could, and you live below your means, you live frugally, and you don't blow your money on a bunch of stupid stuff that you don't need, you can very easily get ahead. Now, granted, there are some life circumstances that are going to keep you from that, and I'm not saying this is going to apply to everybody. But I can tell you for certain, if I can do it, anybody can do it. Because I'm just an average guy that made average money, nothing special. I was just very good at budgeting. I was good at saving my money. I was not good at investing, obviously, but now I'm learning. And hindsight is 20/20. You can't go back and change the past, but you can definitely do better for the future. So the moral of the story here, don't be a victim of the system. They would love more than anything to keep you trapped until 65 or beyond so that you can make them more money. But the way we escape the matrix and the way we beat them at their own game is to not play it. Remove yourself from that system as fast as you possibly can. That's one of the big reasons why I got out, because I was disgusted by the way things are set up. It's set up to keep you trapped, and it's set up for you to fail and to never be able to get ahead. And I will say that it's a lot easier for us single guys, because if you don't have a family or a partner to support, your expenses obviously are going to be much, much less. But again, I think the system is rigged to be that way, because if you have a family, it's almost like you're being punished, because both you and your partner have to work to make ends meet, which means you being away from your kids. And then guess who raises your kids? Somebody other than you. And I think that really ties into this big agenda to destroy the nuclear family. It's all tied together. It's all part of this same system. And it's a system that I don't want to be a part of. So I've removed myself from that. And you can too. And hopefully by me sharing my story and you learning from my mistakes, this will help you get there. So if you have any investment experience or you've done things to set yourself up to be financially secure, share that in the comments below. Everybody in this community would love to see that. That's going to help somebody else out. And as a matter of fact, it would probably help me out, because I'm still learning all this stuff. I'm still completely green to this whole investment idea. And I wish somebody a long time ago would have sat me down and said, here's what you need to do. But that didn't happen. But that's why it's important for us to share our stories, because the education system isn't going to teach us these things. So it's up to us to figure it out. And by us coming together and sharing our experience, that's a great way to do that. So thank y'all. I appreciate it more than you could ever know. This community is growing every single day, and there's going to be some really good stuff coming soon.